We're going to talk today about the most Michael Bay movie ever made.
You would think,
that
right?
is not directed by Michael Bay. I know a lot of people that still think Michael Bay directed this movie.
Maybe Michael Bay thinks he did too.
Yeah, it is probably the best Michael Bay movie that's not a Michael Bay movie. We're going to talk about some convicts that are up in the air. We're going to talk about Con Air.
It's on everybody's tongue after the recent movie.
After The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent opens with the ending of this movie.
Yeah,
so
of course,
join us.
Obviously, we have to talk about it.
And welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance, so check out that website for other members' reviews as well as ours. And since the Nick Cage movie came out and references Con Air, and it's been 25 years, we think it's legitimately time to talk about Con Air.
Yes. So Cameron Poe is a former U.S. Ranger who made a mistake that led to a man's death and cost him 8 years of his life. Now, as Poe's being released, he catches a ride aboard a prisoner transport plane. When the convicts, led by Cyrus the Virus Grissom,
That's a great name,
take control of the plane, Poe has to infiltrate the hijackers while feeding info to government agents, protecting his friends, and making it home to his wife and daughter.
So this is not my favorite John Cusack movie of 1997. That would be Grosse Point Blank. This is not my favorite Nicolas Cage movie of 1997. That would be Face Off. But this is my favorite movie of 1997 that has Nicolas Cage and John Cusack working together to take down the bad guys.
Fair enough.
And this is probably the most awesome character names of 1997. Everybody has a great name. Cyrus. I mean, even Steve Buscemi's name. Greenling.
Garland Green, the Marietta Mangler. We also have Cameron Poe is just a great name. Just a great human being name for Nicolas
From
Cage.
Alabama, of course. This is the best Nick Cage friend.
McKelty Williamson plays Baby O. Odell. We've got some good names. Diamond Dog Jones there, Ving Rhames. There's...
You don't come up with these names without drinking like a quart of whiskey and smoking a cigar at 2 a.m.
I think you get drunk saying the names. So the film is written by Scott Rosenberg, who gave us, recently added to scripts like Venom, Jumanji, The Next Level. But I think Rosenberg also had a hand in another film that we've talked about previously, which was Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
Yes, I think that was his first script he ever did.
Yeah, and whereas I had some of the issues with kind of how he handled the screenplay for that, because I think there's some stumbling done in the narrative as the film moves towards its climax. This is a situation where Rosenberg is basically having as much fun as he possibly can, crafting characters, crafting weird environments, and just like some of the most memorable side characters you're going to see in any action movie.
I mean, Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up. I agree that for 1997 it was a great summer movie. It was a drive-in movie. I mean, you grab a pound of popcorn and pop and enjoy the ride for the silliness of it.
Yeah, well, and this is a movie too, and again, I know that they're below the line, but this has 2 Academy Award nominations. Let's not forget the 90s did appreciate action movies maybe more than current.
I would say
Academy
1997
does.
was a great year for movies.
We had a Best Sound nomination, and also, if I told you, Nick, the song "How Do I Live" was nominated for Best Original Song, and asked you to pick what movie it was from, I doubt that anyone would say Con Air.
That's the only time in the movie, because I heard that this movie got so much airplay. You couldn't get away from it. And then I go see this movie, and it's in the movie, and you're like, oh my God.
I didn't realize that this song came from this movie.
But it got a lot of airplay before the movie got released, so we're getting comfortable using it. It's on. I mean, back then we had 5 different country radio stations, and even then the mainstream pop music radio station. This got airplay almost every hour, and then you go see this movie, and it's in the movie.
Yeah,
like, can I get away from this song?
But I can understand a Guns N' Roses song being written for T2. I get that. I don't understand how a country song was written for an action movie. I don't understand it at all.
Well, you had to get that bar scene out of the way pretty damn fast. And we certainly do, right? And you have to do it in the rain.
It's a good reminder of what this movie is. When that first scene gets done, if you're not in on this movie by the end of the first scene, you're probably not going to enjoy it. It's time maybe to consider switching it off.
Right. Yeah, you got to get it out of the way, right.
Yeah.
And then you kind of laugh. I mean, even Nick Cage is probably getting a smirk between takes of his accent in this movie.
That's the one. Let me say this. I think Nick Cage is doing a great performance physically, and the way he delivers lines. If you just removed the accent, if I could just stretch through time and pull the accent out of him, this would be a great Nick Cage performance. And in the holy trinity of Nick Cage performances being The Rock, Face Off in this film, it's hard pressed for me to say that this is my favorite performance of his, just because I really wish he wasn't doing that accent. It's a terrible accent.
It's why he gets an apology for it, because this is establishing in 1997. You're just going to get Nick Cage doing Nick Cage, and you're just not going to get in his way.
Yeah,
just let him do it, and if it's right or wrong, just let him do it, and he's almost going to get a pass for doing it, because it's almost like, it's Nick Cage, just let him do it.
Yeah.
This is also the movie that kind of solidify him being a legit action star. He tried a little bit doing it. He was a little bit doing little weird movies before this, but this 1997 really solidified him for doing action movies like Face Off, and then this movie. Then you understand he's action movie ready.
Yeah, I think after finishing those three action movies, and I think this was his final one. I think Face Off was a couple months earlier. Having him close off that trinity, it's like now we accept him for who he is. And this actually, in a lot of ways, all those three action films kind of formed who he is as just a star in general. That he's willing to overplay, that he's willing to go over the top if it means getting an extra laugh, getting an extra ooh or ah from the audience, feeling the tension moments. And I think he has a great ability in this movie to carry tension. In so many scenes, you feel exactly how he's feeling through just the eyes. And so, yeah, I'll give him a pass on the accent, but it's a truly awful accent.
This is the movie that actually where they're talking about Nicolas Cage being Superman for a Tim Burton movie. And it was after this movie that production was going to start. There's The Death of Superman Lives. That was the title of the movie. There's a great documentary about the falling out of that movie.
Yeah, John Schnepp's great documentary.
Kevin
Long
Smith
live John
was supposed
Schnepp.
to write the screenplay for it, and this is the movie that solidified that maybe, you can have him be Superman. And that movie would have been weird.
Yeah.
But I would love the weirdness of it. Tim Burton doing Superman, and then the suit lights up.
Well, it's not like Superman was like a very hot IP at the time for filmmakers. Like, we'd had The Quest for Peace and Superman 3. Yeah. We could have done this one, and even if it was terrible, it wouldn't have damaged the property anymore.
Even terrible, it's still been fascinating to see. Right.
Yeah.
So, right, it was not directed by Simon West, who went on to do some other.
He did Lara Croft Tomb Raider, one of the more well liked, I think, video game movies of its time, and then The Expendables 2, which I still think is better than the first movie, while not being entirely great.
Well, you don't have to build up story, right?
Yeah.
Expendables 2, you can just go right for the action, and you just don't have to stop.
But I think that's where I think Simon West does some really great building here, is that this film takes about 20 to 25 minutes, I think, before the plane even takes off. But when the plane takes off and we officially have our Con Air moment, when it happens, you've got all the information you need to know where the movie's going. And to know how you're supposed to feel, to know the tone, to know the themes and what you're going to be playing with. You know everything you need by the time that the plane takes off. And it's great. Then you're just along for the ride.
And it's a couple years before we did Being John Malkovich, where everybody gets to go into John Malkovich's head, including John Cusack, which is in this movie.
It would have been great to have someone come into his head while he was filming this movie.
Right. I don't know why. How did he not get an supporting Oscar nomination?
It's an action movie. I think.
Yeah, he does well.
I think the Academy is always willing to give a nod to action movies in their below the line categories. Mm-hmm. I think giving it to an above the line, a performer, a director, a screenplay, is not something they're going to go for. When you think about Best Original Song, 50 Shades of Grey was nominated for Best Original Song. When you think about Best Sound, there have been a number of Michael Bay films that have gotten up for Best Sound.
But many best sound get nominated because how loud they are for the bangs.
Yeah, they don't know what sound really is, and that's why you have to trust the people that do the nominations. But a lot of the times what wins is usually the most popular movie.
What's the loudest? How loud can you go? Right. When you talk about actors or their famous lines like Robert De Niro, you're talking to me, you can do all that stuff.
You blew it! No.
You blew it. But yeah, that one too from 1997. But I would thoroughly enjoy John Malkovich coming to me if I had a table at a con. Just come up and just say, "Love your work." I want that so bad. You can just lie to me. Just say it.
That's fair.
Just say it. I would pay money for John Malkovich to say, "Love your work."
What I think is so funny about Malkovich in this movie is that his most iconic moments are maybe my least favorite in the movie. The "I'll kill the bunny" thing. I don't care for that scene at all, but of
gets
course
it.
they modeled an entire South Park episode over that, where the bus driver tells the kids to calm down on the bus or she'll shoot the bunny.
It's from the movie.
And then we also get, I think, that the sayonara thing is what just absolutely kills me, because it's so stupid. It is unbelievably stupid.
But that's the whole metaphor of this whole movie.
Yes.
Everything. You don't put a bunch of convicts all together on a plane that are like the high A-list convicts of all time.
Yeah. But I think everything else that Cyrus the Virus does in this movie, I think is fantastic. Because he's just a scenery chewing, dialogue spitting character who didn't really
When he's
wanna
walking on the
make
plane
movie.
and
Like I'm absolutely in love with this movie. This was my first time watching it. Was for our recording of this episode. And to be honest, I wasn't entirely looking forward to it, because I grew up with a lot of my friends liking Con Air, but I was never a big like Nick Cage action fan growing up. I didn't really give a crap. You know, I absolutely adore this movie. I really do. And part of it is because it has no holds barred. You know, that everyone is playing to the nth degree constantly. And that makes it more fun.
And it makes it, that's the whole point. You're supposed to have enjoying fun, and then the Corvette gets smashed.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ridiculous.
Like, I didn't even doubt for a second when the plane takes off and they're carrying the car behind them. I don't even doubt. I'm just like, yeah, that would happen.
In this movie, right? In this movie it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And that's the Corvette, because, what is it?
Colmini, yeah.
Colmini. And I know I screamed out loud, it's the dude from Star Trek Next Generation. It's the dude from him. Who says the most college, we always said that as kids in college and high school, unfuck. Nobody ever said that as an adult. And it's almost like, you took our line. You're using our words.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's clever, though.
Yeah. We say that. You're too old to say that, but he said it in the movie.
That's okay. Someone in the new Jurassic World film used the term dead ass, and I like. There we are. Okay.
Millennial.
Yeah,
talk.
we're in here now. So I think, Colmini, again, playing to his strengths as just kind of a
shouting,
dirtbag, angry, shouting, drives a nice car but really shouldn't be. I think again everyone's
that car has
up in
a great
end,
intro, because you know something's going to happen to that car. It
yeah,
has
you're
a great
just
intro.
waiting for it to happen. And when again being in the audience of my home watching this movie and realizing that John Cusack needs a car to get to where he's going and he doesn't have one, I immediately got up out of my chair and was like, you take the car that he's got. Like I started like jumping up and down.
Did what everybody in the audience of the drive-in.
It's a rarity to have a movie that you're watching alone and feel like you're in an audience, because you're just engaging with what's happening on the screen so well.
Yes.
That's what goes back to my saying, like, I can't believe I love this movie as much as I do, because I shouldn't.
You're getting exactly what I wanted to say. You really shouldn't enjoy this movie as much, because it's like, that stupid movie.
Yep.
It knows it's that stupid movie.
Yeah, and when I go to rate films, like when I really give a rating or like really give a deep review on things, I like to handle things a little differently from like everything has to be great or terrible. I like to look at things as to what are you trying to accomplish with this movie, and were you successful in doing so? If it's a scary movie, I want to have the thrill. Whether that thrill could be even just the joy of how terrible the scary movie is, like how like over the top the monsters are, or what have you. If it's an action movie, I want to feel pumped. I want to be in on it. I want to be like feeling the tension. I want to be getting up out of my seat. That's a great action movie feeling. That's how I view this film. Is were you successful in making something excited in a chair in my home? Absolutely.
Because there's some great scenes into it.
Yep.
There's great scenes, because it's great film work where you get even the action that's just like the chain going through the building, and then you get that action, woo, which by alone you're like, what the hell is that? But it fits for the movie.
Yeah, and we get some really great, again, going back to the minor characters, we get great character interactions. We get Ving Rhames.
Steve Buscemi's character, he's got the greatest intro of all time.
Yeah, well, he's great. The only thing I don't like about him is that I'm a little confused about if that girl at the airstrip was real or in his imagination. I was confused to hell about why that scene was. But even just things like when they're all dancing to Sweet Home Alabama, and he's like, it's define irony. It's a bunch of people dancing on a plane, singing a song about that written by a band where most of them died on a plane.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, that's a great Steve Buscemi delivery. But it doesn't do much in the movie.
But that scene with the kid, that is such a Michael Bay thing, of having a little tea party with a kid in an empty pool.
Exactly, yeah.
That is so Michael Bay.
That's, again,
doesn't
goes
make
back
any
to the
sense.
Michael Bay-ness of it all.
Right.
That's where the difference, though, between this movie and a Michael Bay movie is. And I think Michael Bay does some things really well. I think he really does handle action well for the most part. Michael Bay, though, thinks he's funny. And he's not. And I'm sorry to say it, Michael, but stop adding comedy to your movies by yourself, because you are not a comedy writer. this is a movie where I laughed as often as I felt the tension, because I did find a number of things that the character said to be funny. Even if they were stupid funny, I still laughed at things going on. But you see, like, Ving Rhames' character, he knows that Cyrus is a racist, but he's like, but he's going to get me out. So I'm willing to put up with his villainy, but then as soon as we're free, I think I might kill him, is what he said.
But you get that very, almost like our video game introduction of John Cusack listing all the people, names and all their crimes and everything.
Yeah. Which could have very well been its own teaser trailer for the movie. You know,
pick your character. It's got this bio, this bio. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was a Con Air board game and you get the plane on the board or something like that, those would be the cards you'd flip and be like, oh, I gotta be Diamond Dog again, you know?
But of course, it has to land in Las Vegas.
Yep. And maybe that's where the film falters for me the most, is that I think I liked the idea of there being another action piece after they get off the plane. I'm fine with extending out the action. I didn't find that part wholly believable. Like, I'm not believable, like believable to the constraints of the film. You know, because the film creates its own logic, but I felt like that even like broached past that logic point. And again, having them land on the strip when there's obviously cars and you're in a very big plane, I was like, are we supposed to feel good about them landing the plane and killing probably dozens of people that were on the strip at this point? Because we never really get to, like, where's the logic sit for that?
Right, you don't care about people the whole time. And I was kind of rooting for you, but now you're just going to crash this plane and don't care how many people die because they
don't show a lot of cars getting hit by it, but obviously some people had to die. It's kind of like going back to the Batman that came out this year, where someone's like, yeah, that highway chase is really cool, but there'd be at least 60 people killed in those explosions. Like, you know,
in the rain. And in the rain, right, yes.
So that's kind of the ending I appreciate. I like a number of elements of it, but it does lose me on the logic of the film being broken. And that's kind of where I falter. But everything on the plane is great.
It's a little bit silly.
Yeah. Favorite character of the film for me actually was Dave Chappelle's. I think everything he does in the movie is absolutely hilarious.
Well, you have to have all these bench pressing bad guys, but then you have the one that's kind of like in between.
Yeah, and he's kind of starting the shit, you know? Like he's the comedian of the film at the beginning. I think everything that he does on screen is very, very well put together, and it fits the logic of the movie.
He gets distracted by the woman.
Yep. Yeah. And I think
well, he's the one that falls out of the plane.
Yeah, the best scene for me is him falling out of the plane and landing on Don S. Davis's car. Which, if you asked me if I were to watch a film that featured that scene in it this year for my 2022 bingo, that probably wouldn't have been on the card.
Because you got to communicate with John Cusack.
Yeah,
which is John Cusack doing like, why doesn't anybody listen to me? That's pretty much John Cusack's every character.
That's every film he's ever been in.
Nobody's listening to me. There's a door in my office that goes to John Malkovich's head.
There's a hot tub that goes through time. God, I love John Cusack.
Right? Yes, but he's casted well for this role. That's what he fits perfect.
Yep, and even even the way that the film has very few female characters, but I think it plays the ones that it does correctly. Monica Potter does not need to be the strong, having worked out character, because she is a waitress. She's supposed to be attractive and in love, and I do find that her character, I find that she's in love with Cameron. I believe that, and I find that she wants him to come home and wants to keep him safe. But the standout for me, female-wise, is Rachel Ticotin, who is in Total Recall. She plays our security guard, Sally.
Yeah, she plays Arnold's love interest in Total Recall.
Yeah, and in this movie, I buy that she could kick any one of their asses, one-on-one. Well, I buy it.
She punched Arnold in Total Recall.
Yeah, but she's like, she's kind of built. She's done her working out and stuff like that, and the only reason why she's in danger is because she's surrounded by bad guys. If it was one-on-one, I think she could take any one of them, including Danny Trejo's Johnny 23. But it's only because she's taken in as a hostage that I fear for her. And I think that's the right way to go about it. She's not a Daphne and Scooby-Doo situation.
Of all the people in this movie that played convicts, Danny Trejo is really legitimately been in jail.
Yeah, I would hope that he was never the way that his character was in jail, but he has been in jail.
If you didn't know how Danny Trejo got into movies, after he got out of jail and went probation, when you go to probation office, have you been looking for a job? You go, yeah, I've been trying to audition for movies and don't get the part. He just was...
Yeah.
I try to get... are you really trying... It's kind of a lazy way to say I've been trying to looking for work.
Yep.
But eventually you go on enough movie sets, they're going to put you in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's-
if you're a fan of Danny Trejo, not just in this movie but in everything, there's a great documentary about his life that just came out recently. Check that one out; it's great. Yeah, Danny Trejo in this movie, probably the least likable Danny Trejo I've ever had him play.
No, because he's great in Heat.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's great in Heat. I love the Machete movies. I love, everything where he puts in there.
Yeah.
Machete, don't text.
Yeah.
But, being a guy who's known for raping is not a character that I particularly like.
No.
Which I guess makes it really
that's,
good
that's
when...
the barometer for all these bad guys. You
Yeah.
can massacre, murder people, but hey, rape, that's
Yeah, it's weird that's of all these guys and their horrible things, like we can still look at Steve Buscemi and have a laugh with him, even though he's
Probably
actually
a
been
child
described
murderer.
as like murdering many people,
including children.
Yeah, and then we look over at Danny Trejo and it's like no, it's because he has part of his fame is 23. He's got the tattoos to prove it. Like, interesting character, not likable in the slightest, and that's okay. We don't need to have them all likable. They're convicts.
So, have you seen Con Air? You should have after seeing what came out recently. I can't remember the title.
Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is funny because I went and
Unbearable
saw
Weight of
that
Massive
film
Talent. Okay.
knowing we were going to talk about this one. And I went in. I was like, "Oh shoot, am I seeing the end of Con Air right now?" Like, I should have watched it right before I went to see the movie. But knowing where it still ended off didn't take away from me. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on Con Air. Did you appreciate the film more because of its ties to Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent? I know I did.
Before we go, definitely they lifted of him being in prison. Definitely lifted from The Getaway of Steve McQueen being in prison.
I could see
kind
bits
of
and
The
pieces
Getaway.
of it, and
Yeah.
they kind of they gloss over the
Them
prison
doing,
time.
Doing paper
Oh yeah.
animals and stuff like that. Very much like Steve McQueen in The Getaway.
Absolutely, yeah. So let us know your thoughts on the film down below, and which Nick Cage action movie should we cover next?
You got a wide selection.
Yeah, there's a lot of, not just the three that's in his holy trinity. He's done a whole lot of movies in his career, and some are great,
I don't think
and
he's
some are
stopping.
not. No.
I think he's going to be making movies even when he's in a wheelchair and 80 or 90 years old.
Yep. And I think he's doing some of his best work now, but that's not to take away from this film at all. While you're down there commenting your thoughts on the film, please make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell so that way you can get notifications whenever our new episodes drop.
Yes.
And while you're down there as well, consider checking out the Patreon. As low as $1 a month gets you access to Pixel Kyle and Nick, our monthly show where we give you recommendations in a specific category, exclusive episodes for our Patreon, as well as going at $5 or more a month, sacrificing 1 cup of coffee, means you can get on our rotation of people picking the episodes that we cover on the show. Because there's a lot of movies and just 2 of us to pick them. We need your help, guys. Join the Patreon down below. As all of us here from the show, we thank you for joining us. And you can find my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Don't end up in jail, but if you do, don't steal a plane.